Hello, everybody. Welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today is the 21st of July, 2020. My name is Kerry Holzman. That's what they keep telling me. What's your name? I can't listen to you all at once. All right, let's just move past that. Welcome in. Today I've got a computer repair that has come in unexpectedly. A customer that has reached out to me. I haven't heard from in a very long time. I built this computer. It's got a label on it here. August of 2014. You probably can't see that. And as I recall, it was made from parts from another computer that was upgraded, if I remember correctly. And the customer says that they can't get on the internet with it, that it took like an hour just to get it to boot up. And it sounds from the description, to me, it sounds like they've got a bad or failing hard disk drive, which has me a little concerned because I'm not quite sure that they know for a fact that they had something like Carbonite or Mosey Pro or something running to back up the data. So I've got a little anxiety about this repair. I thought we'd check it out. Now, I've talked to you in the past about the 8-year computer build. And the reason I can say confidently that those builds will last 8 years is based on exactly what I'm about to show you today. With the date of August of 2014, this computer is nearly 6 years old. We're just weeks away from it being 6 years old. And it's perfectly fine for doing all the work the customer needs to do if the hard drive or whatever this issue is had not occurred. They weren't having an issue with too little RAM or too little processing power. They are doing office work with the computer. They're doing Word, Excel, I imagine PowerPoint, email, lots and lots of email, PDFs, browsing the web. They're working and working from home. I'm always very cautious about taking in computers from people's homes with the pandemic happening right now, but it's been wiped down really good. And I did remove the side panel to blow all the dust and debris out of it with my leaf blower prior to starting, and then I put the side panel back on it. Other than that, I haven't seen this computer in years. So I'm going to take the panel off as though I've never done it before, and it will be much cleaner in there than you might expect because I've already blown out all the dust. I've been using an electric leaf blower to blow the dust out of computers now for, what's it been, 12 years? And there's never been a negative consequence as a result. And a lot of people who warn you of such are just making stuff up. Like in their mind, they think that's dangerous, but they can't prove it because it's impossible to cause damage with the leaf blower. If anybody wants to make a video that proves it wrong, I'd love to see it. And that's assuming you're using the leaf blower, as it should be used and not as a hammer. Because I know there's some people out there like, I can damage a computer with a leaf blower, and then they just start smashing the leaf blower on it. You're very funny. All right, let's see what we got in here. So this was still towards the end of the power supply days when I was using. It used to be back in the day that the fans would blow air out the back of the power supply. They would draw air in from this part of the power supply and then bring the air from in the case through the power supply and out through the back. And these Antec power supplies were just solid units. It still, as far as I know, works great today. 380 watts, that's all it took back in the day. This motherboard is a Gigabyte GA H81M DS2V. Maybe I should type that in a chat room and people can look it up. We can get an idea of what year this came out. This is, what did I say it was? Gigabyte GA. Why is it not typing? Wrong keyboard. All right, let's put an end to that right now. It's Gigabyte GA what did I say? H81 M-DS2V. We should be able to get a year on that on the 81 series chipset. I'm going to guess I think that's older than 6 years old. I think this was in use at one customer's location, and we upgraded them to a more modern processor. And then this board and RAM, CPU and CPU fan all contained in this one little board, all this one unit, and we're just moved into another case and sold as used to another customer. Well, that's not exactly the way it went down, but I don't want to get into that right now. But basically, it may have been given away for this. It's a nonprofit organization. So anyway, I was surprised because I don't remember selling this to them or giving it to them, whatever the case was here. But it was clearly um, well documented. No funny business. I see I've got a USB 3 to 2 adapter, meaning that this motherboard does not even have USB 3. That's how old it is. So in order for the blue USB ports up here to work on the Corsair 200R case, I had to get this little adapter and plug it in there. There's our front port umbilicals, our front port audio, SATA for the mechanical drive, SATA for the DVD reader writer. Got 2 sticks of G-Skill. No, that's Corsair Vengeance RAM. It looks exactly like G-Skill Ripjaws though, doesn't it? Boy, that's eerily similar. And then we've got the Intel stock fan on there. Looks great. Everything looks good. For a machine that's 6 years old, it looks like brand new. So the first thing I want to do is verify the problem that the customer reports, which means I've got to plug it in, turn it on, and see what it looks like. I am so afraid that this is a bad hard drive, and the reason I say that is due to its age. Most mechanical drives, on average, will fail, especially in this era, will fail within 5, 6 years. It just happens. They're mechanical, they fail. I don't know what else to tell you. That's why I love solid state drives. Solid state drives are just not even comparable in reliability. They got to be based on the fact that I just never see a solid state drive go bad. They got to be over 10 times more reliable than a hard disk drive. I see failed hard drives all the time. I've never ever seen a failed solid state drive. And what cracks me up is every time I make that statement, somebody misunderstands it. One of you out there listening heard solid state drives don't fail. That is not what I said. Some of you out there heard there's never been a solid state drive that's failed. That is also not what I said. Some of you may have experienced a solid state drive failure. I didn't say you didn't. I want you to listen very carefully to the words I pick when I say them before you type in what you think is a clever response through your hearing what you want to hear instead of what I'm saying, because it's really, really getting short on my nerves. I go through an extended effort to very carefully pick the words that I pick, and even then sometimes make an error. But in this instance, it's been said enough times. I have never had a customer bring me a system that has a solid state drive that has failed, and every solid state drive I have ever installed, none of them have ever been failed. None of them have been brought back to me for repair with regards to a solid state drive failure. That's my personal experience. It's never happened. Whether it's an M.2 drive, SATA 1, SATA 2, SATA 3, I've not experienced it. Well, I have no doubt there are people that have failed SSDs. It's not sitting here on my desk. I don't see it. So you can talk all you want. It doesn't mean anything to me. I'm in business to fix computers. I'm not in business to sell solid state drives. So I really don't care what the failure rate is. But I will tell you, to this day, no unit has been brought in for repair that had a failed SSD, and no SSD I have ever sold to any customers and installed, or rather, I wouldn't sell it if I didn't install it, but regardless, none of them have ever failed. Okay, now you can take that information and throw it in the trash. I don't care. I'm sharing with you my experience as a person that repairs computers for a living, not a guy with one in the back room who plays with it as a hobby. So again, if you want to dismiss that experience and the sheer number of machines I see, I don't care. I am trying so hard to avoid the inevitable comments from people who hear what they want to hear. And this is probably all a waste of my time trying to make people hear. So most of you get it, some of you don't. But that's the joy of doing these YouTube videos. If I show people how I apply thermal paste, they think I'm telling them how to do it. I don't know where that comes from. If I share with you how I do something, I'm not asking you for your approval. I'm simply sharing with you how I do it. I'm not telling you the way you do it is wrong. I'm not telling you you have to do it my way. I'm simply stating that I've been in business for a long time. I've been a professional PC repair tech for 29 years. If what I'm doing is wrong, how am I still in business? Just luck, I guess. So it's not really a competition over who's smarter than who. I'm choosing to share some experience with you, and some people are choosing to dismiss my experience as though it didn't happen or it's not real. That hurt. No, it didn't. How can you tell me if it hurt? Because I didn't hit you that hard. Well, it still hurt. No, it didn't hurt. Yeah, you know how annoying that is when people do that? Well, then don't do that. All right, let's fire this bad boy up. Let's see what happens. I've got my HDMI cable already set up. Oh, this does not have HDMI on the back. Didn't plan that one through very well. I suppose DVI to HDMI adapter is in order. I keep all my adapters right there. So we'll plug that on. And now we can plug HDMI on. See, I was unknowingly and unwittingly prepared. And I've got the keyboard and mouse up here, which I will turn on and grab the dongle. We'll plug that in up here. What else? What else? Power. I need power. So I'll grab my power cable here. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing well today. My thanks and a special shout out to Peter Laycock, who has made a very generous contribution to the channel. And today's video is being brought to you by Peter Laycock, and he's going to be undergoing some chemotherapy here very soon. And what I really appreciate are people that follow doctor's orders and do what they should do in order to beat whatever they're battling with regards to their personal health. I kind of grew up in a family where you just kind of ignored it until it went away. It's a manly thing, you know, and it's not manly to just die early because, or to argue with the doctor because you think you know better than the doctor. That rarely will work out in your benefit. So I really admire the people that it's not easy. And it takes some courage and it takes a strong will, and it is its own reward. So for folks out there like Don Melitas, who watches us in Australia, people like Peter Laycock, I mentioned Madi, who normally joins us in the chat, is fighting COVID-19 right now. You just seek the treatment. Don't wait till it's too late before you ask for help. Do what they tell you to do. And if you want to add some homeopathic remedies on top of that, you go right ahead. But in my opinion, don't override some homeopathic remedy in exchange for, Western medicine on doctor's orders and try and outsmart your doctor. Just from my experience, it most of the time doesn't work out well. That being said, I know a lot of you are battling different struggles, be that as it may. Just keep fighting that good fight, and follow what the doctors tell you to do, please. All right. That being said, apart from that, I hope everybody is doing well under those conditions. And I have no idea what size hard drive that is in here. I don't know. Sharon says prayers never work. I don't know that that's true, Sharon, but it shouldn't hurt. You know what I mean? You want to send positive thoughts or prayers. I don't see the harm in it. And we don't know. We don't know. Could be Could be something there, we don't know. So I like to be open-minded. Just not so open-minded that my brains fall out, but open-minded. And if something can potentially cause harm, such as questioning your doctor or getting a second opinion and questioning that one because you're not getting the answers you want to hear, ooh, not good. All right. So the customer said it took like an hour for the machine to power up. And that right there leads me to think we've got a hard drive problem. And the customer said that they didn't want to push it any further, that they shut the machine off for fear of creating more harm, which is wonderful to hear that, because oftentimes customers are like, I've got to get this machine running, I've got to get this work done. And if you've got a failing hard drive, you might just run out the last few moments of its life in these futile efforts to make it boot. And then any attempt of easy data recovery now has become more complex, because in those last moments, we might have been able to recover some data before it failed. But since the end user took it upon themselves to try and fix it themselves, they ran the clock out on what was left on the drive and diminished any opportunity for cheap and easy data recovery. So this customer did the right thing by just shutting it down and contacting me right away. Don't put it off. The sooner you reach out about a problem, the faster and cheaper it will be to fix. If you live with a problem and ignore it, it gets worse and worse and worse. Boy, I've seen some. I had a customer one time bring me a computer that had a RAID 1 array. So that's 2 drives, one mirrors the other one, right? So customer only sees 1 drive. And the reason this happens is if you were to have a hard drive failure, the other drive will still have everything on it. It's not really a backup, because if you delete something off one drive, the other drive mirrors that. So an accidental deletion, still the loss of data. If you get a virus on one drive, the virus goes on the other drive. It's an exact mirror. Well, this customer got a notification on the screen that the drive had failed, and press F1 to continue, and so she did, and it booted into Windows and ran off the one remaining drive. And every time she'd start the computer, she'd hit F1 and she'd say, I really got to get around to fixing that. We've got to have somebody take a look at this, but not today, I'm busy. Well, then drive 2 failed. So now the error message was both drives have failed. Insert a bootable disk and press any key to continue. That's when I got the call. There's nothing I could do as far as any data recovery efforts went. Both drives were toast. The expense to send the data the expense to recover the data from the drives, and I didn't know about $300 data recovery at this time. Heck, they may not even have been around at that time. It's generally around $1,200 per drive, and it takes a few weeks if they can get the data back. And the customer wasn't gonna, there's no way. So we put a new drive in and reinstalled the operating system, and system was fine, but everything was gone. It was just like getting a brand new computer at a fraction of the price, because all he had to pay for was a new drive and installation of the labor to get it configured. But what a shame, and what a difference the outcome would have been if that customer would have reached out to me right away. Would have been a completely different outcome and probably about the same expense. So food for thought. Keep that in mind. And how many people we have in the chat room right now? We've got 750 people joining us. Welcome in again, everybody. Thanks you guys for joining me today. I had an interview earlier today with Simon from RoboForm, and that's all been recorded. I'm gonna do some light editing on it, and then I'll publish that tomorrow. Big discount on RoboForm. I'll announce that tomorrow. So for now, let's go over to camera input number 2. And let me put myself up in a corner here. Here we go. And let's turn this machine on and see what it does or does not do. Power supply on. Okay, fan is spinning. We're initializing. I want to listen for the drive, see if I hear any weird noises. Okay, well, that's something. This looks like Windows 7, maybe. Yeah, this is Windows 7. They shouldn't be running Windows 7. That's a whole nother problem. and I don't hear anything unusual, and I'm so accustomed to solid state drives, I immediately start thinking something's wrong because we're not in the operating system yet. But we're gonna let it sit here for a little bit and see what happens. And sometimes if the hard drive is failing, you will hear warning signs, perhaps, or warning sounds of a failing drive. Eric recommends SpinRite for very cheap for what it can do. It's good recovery software for mechanical drives. SpinRite's absolutely one of the worst pieces of software ever written in the history of mankind, and you'd be a fool to run it. And the reason I say that, and anybody in data recovery professionally will tell you it's a very dangerous and unwise piece of software, is because if you have a drive that's failing, you want to put as little wear and tear on it as possible. You want to get the data off of that drive and onto a healthy drive. You want to clone every sector of that drive well you can, whatever it takes, and you want to do it as quickly as possible, and then you perform your recovery from the cloned drive. SpinRite, in its profound foolishness, actually manipulates a failing drive, which in my experience is not only logically a very foolish thing to do, just common sense. You don't do that. If you have a car with a flat tire, you don't step on the gas pedal and go as fast as you possibly can. You're probably going to wreck out and damage the car beyond repair over what is a simple flat tire. And this is effectively what SpinRite will do to your hard drive. It is the death blow to a failing drive. The idea that it can fix anything is a joke, and it's an illusion. SpinRite doesn't fix anything. SpinRite covers things up. It puts a Band-Aid over it. It sweeps it under the rug, and it gives people the false impression, when it works, that their drive is safe to continue using. It is profoundly dangerous, and it violates the #1 rule in data recovery, and that is you don't make any changes to a failing hard drive. Never, ever, ever. Unless, of course, you don't give a rat's behind about the data and you're just a hobbyist farting around, in which case, knock yourself out. But to give that advice to other people is really lacking any accountability, because if somebody held you accountable for that and they lost data because of your advice, you be careful about what you said in the future. And that's the difference between me and you. I get paid for the advice people ask me for. And if the advice I give them causes them harm or damage, I can be held financially liable for that. SpinRite is absolutely one of the single worst pieces of software, in my opinion, I have ever encountered. It is so profoundly bad. And you know, it really could have been a good piece of software. All Steve Gibson had to do was have it move the data from the failing drive to a good drive, and it would have been a good piece of software. But in trying to repair the drive, it is often the very last thing that drive will ever do is run SpinRite on it. Basically, if you don't care about your data, and I'm going to use SpinRite because I can't afford data recovery, and if it doesn't work, understand that data recovery that might have been possible will more than likely no longer be possible once you're done with SpinRite. It is very serious, and it's extraordinarily dangerous. And the fact that people still talk about it today and recommend it today suggests that many people have learned nothing about how hard drives work and how important data is. So be warned. If you want to use that piece of software, I hope that you realize if it doesn't work, you've probably eliminated any legitimate chance for a professional data recovery company to get your data back. So if it's this or nothing, okay, but at least know that going into it. Don't be under the false assumption that if that fails, you can go to plan B. Chances are you will have destroyed any opportunity for plan B. If you don't believe me, contact any data recovery company at your choosing and ask them about SpinRite. This is obviously exactly as the customer described. We're getting to, we've got a mouse, we've got a cursor, and it's moving, but we've got a very slow loading of the desktop. Now the customer felt like maybe they had a virus. Viruses aren't very common these days. Certainly we get ransomware, malware, that sort of thing. And you can see this is a Kids at Hope computer. I was trying to keep it private, just in case whatever desktop icons came up. They did not give me the password, so I'm going to have to contact the customer to get the password. But these symptoms still are exhibitive or symptomatic of a failing drive that's struggling over and over and over to read data. It can also be data corruption or a program or potentially a virus that's causing the system to time out looking for something. But given the age of the drive, I suspect the drive is failing. And by contacting me right away, and because the drive still spins and boots, there's a good chance we can pull the data off without requiring expensive data recovery services. By the way, if everybody made backups like they're supposed to, there'd be no data recovery business. There'd be no business. So it's a good thing people remain indignant and think it's never going to happen to them, because it makes data recovery companies millions of dollars every year because of the illusion that if you just keep positive thoughts, you're not going to be affected. And reality will smack you right in the face every time. So it's your data, it's not mine. And if you want to risk losing it by not making backups, that's your problem. That's not my problem. But I feel it's my duty to inform you that there are consequences to your decisions. And as long as you're willing to accept those consequences, I don't have a problem with your decision. My concern is people are making decisions without really fully comprehending the consequences of the decisions. That's where I get upset. They get misled with information like spin rate. They get misled constantly. And I should just keep my mouth shut and just make money from it. But it doesn't sit well with me. I would much rather, backups are very cheap and inexpensive. Well, that's the same word, and relatively quick to make when compared to data recovery. And if you don't care about your data, then neither do I. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I feel like I care about my customers' data more than they do, and I'm just tired of it. I'm just absolutely tired of it. The computers aren't new anymore, and the concepts and the techniques and the risks are all familiar to all of us. So to continue in 2020 ignoring this need but insisting your data is important, not that this customer did any of that, by the way, but it's very common. And I would like everybody to have backups, or at the very least acknowledge that when they say they don't have backups, that they understand they could lose everything and they don't care. I'm good with that too. So I'm going to pull the drive out of here, and we're going to take a look at what this drive is and see what we're working with. Looks like I got a screw in there. I secured it. All right, this is a 1 terabyte Seagate Barracuda, and this was manufactured. Let's see, we should have a date on here. Date 14362. Not quite sure how to interpret that date. I'm going to need to run a test on this drive. What I'm going to do is I take a spare hard drive. I've got a spare drive here, and I use all solid state drives now, just for the sheer reliability of them, the performance. They use less power, they generate less heat, they're quieter. There's all the reasons in the world to no longer use mechanical drives unless you need massive amounts of storage, in which case we go back to, I hope you're backing that stuff up. Some people have mentioned they wanted to see more repair and diagnosis videos on the channel, but I want to remind you the channel is whatever rolls in, from computer repairs and upgrades to product reviews. I pretty much roll with whatever comes in the door. So without your participation, without you reaching out to me for a repair, all I can show you is what others reach out to me for. So if there's anything specific you want to see, you need to provide it to me. Otherwise, it is what it is. That's how this happens. I don't generate this work. I didn't make this happen. It just happened, and it happened today, and so I'm filming it today. This was not part of my original plans for today. With that drive hooked up, I'm just going to do a clean install of Windows 10 on here. So I'm going to grab my Windows 10 flash drive. We're going to plug that in, to any USB port, and then I'm going to plug the HDMI and power cable back on, and we'll do a nice clean install of Windows 10 onto that solid state drive. It should work, I think, even on this old motherboard. And we're not risking anything with regards to the customer's configuration or data because we've got their drive completely disconnected. And that gives me the freedom to experiment at will with the hardware and the diagnosis without risk of damaging anything belonging to the customer. So that's the logic there. And then if I switch back over now to, I keep grabbing the wrong mouse, we'll go back to camera 2. And it might already have Windows 10 on that flash drive. I mean, the solid state drive. I don't know. We'll find out here in a minute. Yeah, it looks like Windows 10 was already on here, and it's just reassessing the hardware changes of the motherboard from the last, whatever system I installed it on. And for my intent and purpose on this diagnostic, that's probably going to be good enough. It's going to load a video driver. It's probably going to take a minute. And take a minute here. We're going to take a minute? Well, wait a minute. Well, that's not good. Sometimes when you move a copy of Windows over from one motherboard to another, sometimes it'll automatically adjust with the drivers, and other times it won't. So I thought, I was rolling with it just to see what would happen. Dennis says the manufacturing date on the hard drive corresponds to March the 3rd, 2014. That makes sense if the computer was built in August of 2014. That adds up. And a drive to fail within that period of time is right in the average. Kevin Ranke has contributed $5. He says, when can we get a tour of your home office? Paul Stallion, 48, contributes $10. He says, thanks for all your teaching. I'm currently waiting for my PC parts. This will be my second PC build, and keep up the great work. Thanks, Paul. Philip Gunner has contributed 79 pence. Oh, thank you, Philip. What else do we have? What else am I missing? Frankie B with a $50 contribution. He says, I am unable to find out how old that motherboard is. A trick would be to type in the model number of the motherboard with the word review, and then look at the date that the motherboard was reviewed. That should give you an idea of when the motherboard was released. Should get you right in that ballpark. Thank you for that very generous contribution, Frankie. I appreciate that very much. So what I'm going to do, since this is not giving us any video, I'm going to hit reset on here. And let's hit F12 on the keyboard. And we'll get to boot options, and we'll select, oh, we don't have USB in there? Oh, that's interesting. Look at that BIOS. Okay, BIOS version F5. I wonder if there's a newer BIOS. That would be my first question. The CPU in here is an Intel Core i5 4590. That's at 3.3 gigahertz. And let's take a look at what the latest BIOS is. If I just go to Google and type in H81, M-DS2V and hit enter, I should see the home page from Gigabyte is the first option. Yes, there it is. And under support, scroll down to BIOS. It looks like there's only 3 BIOSes for this board. The latest is version F6. And what did I say I had? F5. So there's one newer version. Oh, we'll put it on there. Why not? So go here, and we're going to download F6. And we'll extract that. And I'll copy the main BIOS file, just as you always see me do on BIOS updates. It's no different, even though the motherboard is 6 years old, the process is exactly the same. It's unchanged. So let me copy the BIOS file to the flash drive. That's done. And then we can put the flash drive into the back of the computer here. I'm going to take this other flash drive out. Show what's going on with that. Plug this one in. And we may need to reboot for the system to recognize it. Where am I? Is there? Let's try this first. Let's see. Got to remember how to do this. It's been a while. QFlash, there it is. Run. Update BIOS from drive. Scroll down to the flash drive. There's version F6. Click OK. And then we wait. It says, are you sure? Yep. And we'll put that new BIOS on there just for the sake of it. So it does look like CPU seems fine, RAM seems fine, power supply seems fine. Really pointing to something with the hard drive or the configuration. And again, running Windows 7, very, very unwise for any business. Regardless of the excuse. Steve Warrington contributed $2. Thank you, Steve. Michael Dane says that's a 4th generation i5. So to give you some comparison, we're on the 10th generation now. I see Stephen Bernstein's joining us. Welcome in, Stephen. Good to see you. I'm just scrolling through the chat room while I'm waiting, just to see if I've missed any comments from friends. We've got about 1,100 people watching live around the world. Welcome in, everybody. If you're new here, we have a very friendly chat room. If you want to come in and be supportive and be kind, you're always welcome in our chat room, always. If you're looking to prove how smart you are, you can go elsewhere. If you want to prove how nice you are, welcome. It's real easy. All right, so with the BIOS updating right now, it's rebooting on its own. I haven't touched anything. Everything's happening automatically as it always would. It's still attempting to load that same Windows 10 off of the solid state drive I plugged in. Oh, look at that. It's working this time. That's interesting. Now, the reason I've done this is what I want to do is I'm going to disconnect the optical drive and I'm going to plug the mechanical drive using the power and data cable. And I want the system, and obviously I'm going to do that when the system's powered off. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to shut the system down. I'm going to hook the customer's mechanical drive up as a secondary drive so that I can boot into Windows 10 and run Crystal Disk Info, see the health status of that drive, run a disk check on it, see what's going on if we have a mechanical failure. Either way, this customer will be getting a solid state drive. They're not going to be leaving. They won't get the system returned, I should say, with a mechanical drive because it's just going to fail, guaranteed. So let me do that. Let me copy. See, we're done with the flash drive. Let's pull that out of here. Let me grab my utilities flash drive and we'll copy Crystal Disk Info. What else do I need? Let's see. PC testing software, Crystal Disk Info. We can grab CPU-Z to learn a little bit more about the system, and Crystal Disk Mark Portable if you want to measure performance. That's about all I think I need from here. And let me just run CPU-Z and see what kind of information it provides us with regards to the RAM and other details about this 6-year-old system. So there we are with a Core i5 4590 Haswell chip. Our main board is the H81M DS2V from Gigabyte with F6 BIOS. We look at the SPD, or the serial presence device, of each memory chip, and we'll see it's DDR3. The module size is 4 gigs. It's made by Corsair. And we have slot 1. Slot 2 is empty. Slot 3 is a matching stick, so it looks like 8 gigs total. I hit memory right there. Yeah, 8 gigabytes. It's in dual channel. There's all of your command rates and refresh cycle time, blah, blah, blah. The graphics, we're using the built-in Intel graphics that are part of the CPU. And that's pretty much all I need to know. I'm going to go ahead and shut the machine down. Well, that's pretty quick, you know, not bad, not bad. And then I'm going to use the SATA cable and the data cable. Here, let me go full screen. You can watch a little better here. Here we go. So I'm going to take this data cable and SATA cable because the DVD drive isn't something we normally use. And I'm just going to temporarily use it on the mechanical drive here. Now by default, the BIOS should boot to whatever's plugged into the SATA port 0 before it boots to SATA port 1, unless somebody's gone in and made that change. Without doing anything else, I can let the drive hang there as long as it's not touching, as long as the green circuit board here isn't touching anything metal. Hard drive doesn't care if it's upside down, right side up, vertical, horizontal, tilted, it doesn't care. But we do want to make sure it's stable. We don't want to bump it, knock into it, or in any way have any movement while the drive is in motion and working, right? Because that can cause platter damage, head damage. The surface of the head is a fraction of the width of a human hair away from that platter. And if it makes contact with the platter, it's game over with the customer's data. So don't take this process lightly. Make sure those cables are tight and secure, that that drive isn't going to fall out of there. Do what you need to do to be safe. It's not yours. Oh, there's our good friend Marty, $20. He says, I see you from the hospital and thanks for the vid. Marty, it's so good to see you. I hope you're feeling better. I hope we can keep you some bring a smile to your face and keep you a little distracted from, the party that is a hospital. I hate hospitals. I hate them. Sorry you're there, but I'm glad you're there and getting treatment. That's really important. And, you know, glad you're here, man. I was going to call you, but I don't know if you can talk, if it's hard to breathe. So I should send you a text or something later. So with that done, I'm going to pull this flash drive. I'm done with that. That has those utilities I just copied on there. Let's turn this back on and let's go back to camera 2. We can see what's happening. So again, without changing anything in the BIOS, it should default to booting from the solid state drive because it's plugged into SATA port 0. That's why I do that. And it's going to now be able to see the second hard drive, which was the primary drive until I've changed it. Right? You with me? So with Crystal Disk Info, we can read the status, the health status rather, of all the drives. This is a free download. You just Google that, Crystal Disk Info, the website will come up. And if you download the zip file, there's no installation. You just execute the file out of the directory with no installation, and it will analyze your system in just a few minutes, well, moments really, and give us a health status. So here it's showing us that little solid state drive is only 128 gigs. It's not much use to many people, but as a technician, it's good to have it for just this purpose. You'll see it's been powered on. The solid state drive has been powered on over 1,000 times with over 21,000 hours of use. That's 889 days of consistent use. Hasn't failed. Love these people. These people online that sit there and, oh, solid state drives are horrible. Don't listen to those people. Now, we can see that my assumptions were correct with the status of the hard drive. It is failing. It's not failed, but it's in a failing state. It is going to fail soon. We can see there's a high reallocated sector count. We can see that there's the current pending sector count and uncorrectable sector count are beyond the norm, which is why we have these yellow areas. Now, if these areas were red, that would suggest it's too late. But it looks like I should be able to, with enough patience, go to the drive, find the documents folder, so users and kids at Hope, and I should be able to take this documents folder and drag it out. And the drive may very well struggle to get the data, but we're going to just leave it alone. We don't want to try any repair on this drive. We don't want to manipulate the drive because it's failing. And we're going to just let that run. And I'm going to minimize this for the sake of not showing the file names, to the world. And we'll just let that run for a few minutes. And so while that's running, I'm going to go back to full screen on camera 1. And I'll address any questions that you guys have for me. My plan in this repair should be relatively simple. That is to rescue the data. At this point, it's not a data recovery, it's a data rescue. I want to rescue the data onto that same solid state drive. I'm going to get a new solid state drive that's at least 500 gigs. I'm going to install Windows 10 Professional on it. And then I'm going to copy the data back into the documents folder, the bookmarks, anything else they need. They will have to reinstall their programs. You cannot move programs from one system to another. Generally speaking, programs require activation, and they require an installation that customizes to the unique hardware that is your desktop or laptop or tablet or whatever you have. It has to sort of customize to your screen resolution, your video driver, all of that is very complex. In the world of Apple, when everybody's running the same hardware, that would be a lot easier. But in the world of PCs, of Windows, there's so many variations of hardware combinations. The idea that you could just, take an installed program and the registry entries and system files and subdirectories and move all that over and think it's going to work. You might get lucky, but in general, it's usually unstable. It might appear to work at first, but over time you might realize you've wasted a lot of time and probably should have reinstalled. That is generally the consensus with few exceptions. And since I have to support this and I'm the one who's going to get the phone call, we're going to do everything by the book, which means programs will have to be reinstalled from scratch. The good news is once that's done, it won't have to be done again for a very, very long time. And it looks like this Kids at Hope computer is adequate for with a solid state drive, that it may end up being a replacement for one of the 5 I was going to give to them. This is actually very good. It's not quite as good as what I was going to give to them, but with a solid state drive in it, it's not bad. You saw how fast it shut down. You saw how fast it boots up. I think this has at least another 4 years of life in it with Windows 10 on it. So if you guys have any questions, John wants to know if I could use Acronis to clone the failing drive. What will probably happen in my experience is that there is a file that Windows is requiring during boot up that it's having trouble getting to. And my guess is if I clone this drive with Acronis, that I will have a brand new drive that behaves exactly the same way, in that it's going to take forever to boot. I'll have all the data and I'll have all the programs, and I'll also have all the problems. Acronis doesn't magically fix corrupted files. If I was having some difficulty retrieving the documents, if the file system were somehow corrupted and I was unable to read the drive, I could attempt to clone it with Acronis. But remember, on a failing drive, every moment you keep it on is one moment less you've got to do something else later. With regards to professional data recovery, the rule is you take the failing drive, and with professional imaging tools, you image every sector off of that drive, as long as it takes, onto a good drive. And then all your data recovery efforts come off of the good drive. It doesn't make the good drive readable or bootable. But what it does is it puts all the mess of data there that data recovery software can now go through all that and try and reassemble it as if the drive was functioning, because it's an exact copy of the drive, only this one works. Some of the files are going to be damaged, corrupted, have pieces missing, and there's nothing you can do about that. When it comes to documents and pictures and files that you've created, you hope that they remain on an unaffected part of the drive, and you hope that all you have to do is reinstall your apps. Because even if you have to buy the app because you've lost your product key or whatever, that's still better than losing photos, right? How are you going to recreate your trip wherever you went, or those memories? How do you recreate those? You don't. You lose them forever, which is why backups are so important. The system's quite old. It's got Windows 7 on it. We don't want Windows 7 on it anyway. We don't want to do an upgrade of Windows 10 on top of a broken Windows 7, and ideally we wouldn't want to put it on Windows 7 anyway. For the best, reliable, clean, lean, mean, efficient, and optimized install, we want a clean install. If we do it clean and we do it right the first time, we don't have to revisit this again in a long, long time. If you want to cut corners because you're lazy, you can't be bothered, you're just setting yourself up for more work later, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. But I'm being paid by a customer to do a job. Every time this customer has to bring their PC in for repair, they're not able to work. When they're not able to work, customers aren't being helped. People aren't getting paid. Work isn't being done. Progress is stopped. It's pretty serious stuff. It's not a toy. It's not a novelty. This is life. People got to pay your bills. You got to pay the bills, man. How do you pay the bills? With a job. What do you do at a job? You go to work. What do you use at your job? Probably a computer. What happens if the computer doesn't work? You can't do your job. This isn't rocket science. So there's a lot of pressure, and you'll see I get pretty serious when I talk about it, because I have so many viewers that are just home users that for one reason or another just don't comprehend. They can't put that together, how different home use is from work use. So while there are ways that you can go around shortcutting, this is what the home user or the unprofessional technician would do, in my opinion. Uh, because I have so many customers, going back and revisiting customers over and over because I keep taking shortcuts will ultimately take me longer, make me look like I don't know what I'm doing, upset my customer, maybe make me more money, maybe not. If the customer thinks it's a warranty issue, then it comes out of my pocket. Now I'm not working. How often can I not work? How much revenue can I lose before I can't pay my bills? So it's just a big wheel that goes around. And so it's not a whole lot of laughing matter when it comes to stuff like this. And that's why I get so passionately upset when I see such bad advice from people who take no accountability, no liability, and no responsibility to the advice they offer. If somebody's going to offer you their advice, ask them for their phone number so that if you have any problems with their advice, you can call them and they can help you. I want their full name and phone number. If they say, I'm not going to give you my full name and phone number, don't take their advice. That's all you need to know about their advice. That's all you need to know. And when you're paying a professional and that professional gives you bad advice, you have legal recourse, which you do not have when somebody just says something to you on the internet and you choose to believe it and abide by it. At the end of the day, it's your decision and it's your consequence. So I want you to understand, at the very least, I just want you to understand what your role is when you seek out the shortcuts. All right. And when it gets really, really bad, a lot of times by the time it gets to me, it's a complete, it's unfixable. Like you have to just start over. What could have been an easy fix has now become so convoluted and twisted that the amount of time it would take to fix it and the amount of money that would cost don't make financial sense than just doing a wipe and reinstall and starting over again. And quite honestly, you don't need anybody to do that. You don't need me to do that. You can do that yourself. So backups, backups, backups. But it is a fun job, and I do enjoy it, and it's very rewarding. And when you're there and you save the day, people express all this gratitude. They're very happy, and they're grateful, and that makes me feel like $1 million. And if you just want to phone it in, I'll be there to. People can call me to clean up your mess. That's fine. I've made a lot of money from other technicians that took shortcuts. I don't mind fixing other people's work. It pays the same. Otto's talking about experience. Otto, the only way you get experience is by doing it. You can't just wake up and play a piano like Beethoven or Bach. You have to practice and work at it every day, and every day you're better than the day before. And it's just repetition over and over and over again. And over a course of time, it starts to become second nature. But don't sell yourself short because you're just starting, and don't expect to reach levels of Bach and Beethoven on your sixth piano lesson. It's going to take some time, but stick with it, enjoy it, and grow at whatever rate you need to grow at, but do grow. And hopefully you enjoy the process, and don't let people on the internet dissuade you, and be very careful of information on the internet in general, specifically free information that, again, has no liability or accountability, because anybody can say anything. It's up to you whether or not you choose to believe it. All right, so let me look at how we're doing on our copy. I think it should be done by now. Well, it looks like the computer went to sleep on me. Let me wiggle the mouse and see if that wakes up. There it is. All right, let's go full screen on my side so I can see what's happening here. I'm going to grab downloads. I'm going to grab Dropbox, even though it's really not necessary, but I will. I'm going to grab the desktop. A lot of times customers copy files to their desktop. Excuse me. We'll grab contacts, Dropbox, favorites, links, music, pictures, videos. Right click, copy. I'm just going to make a new folder just so I don't confuse myself, and we'll just put it all in there. So far, it looks like the copy's going pretty smooth. Oh, we're still got, it says 30 minutes. Holy smokes. All right, we're going to do multiple copies at the same time. That'll keep it busy for a while. I'm going to minimize this stuff once again just to give the customer a little privacy with the file names. I'm a little concerned about that. Not that we're dealing with any spy agencies or anything, but it's just common courtesy. Madi has contributed $20. He says, I love to see your work, Carrie. Hey, thank you, Madi, and it's good to see you and hear from you again. Other questions? If you've asked a question earlier, I didn't see it, please repost your question again. I'll do my best to provide an answer for you. And I can go full screen again back on camera 1. It looks like we've got a little over 1,300 people watching live around the world. If you want to give a shout out, let me know where you're watching from in the world. It's always kind of fun to see. Some funny people in the chat room. Brad wants to know if I ever use a hard drive manufacturer's utilities like C-Tools or Western Digital Lifeguard. The last time I used those tools was way back when before solid state drives became affordable. So back around 2014, all the way back to, the mid 90s. Yes, I use those tools. I have not fired up those tools in ages. For the most part, we're able to convince customers to upgrade their hard drives to solid state drives sheerly for performance reasons alone. So we're avoiding the situation where the drives fail. We pull the drives and replace them with solid state, and the customer says, wow, it's like I got a brand new computer. They don't miss the old hard drive, and we don't miss the calls for support. It works out to everybody's benefit. The last time I've seen a drive come in here bad that required data recovery was last week, but that's beside the point. Prior to that, and the drive that came in last week was from 2005, was a manufacturing. So the drive was 15 years old. I was very lucky to get the data back. It was right on the fence of needing to go to data recovery, and the customer wasn't going to pay, $300, $400 for data recovery, which, by the way, is a bargain in the data recovery business. That's a third of what most places charge. That's why I'm so excited about $300 data recovery. It's amazing that those guys have been in business and haven't changed their price in all this time. And I have an interview with Brian Cometa, 2 interviews with Brian Cometa of $300 data recovery, because unlike most data recovery stores or services, he shows you how it's done. He's got well over $250,000 worth of specialty data recovery tools. So if you want to do your own data recovery, you can buy a PC3000 data recovery card for about $10,000. Then you can buy the software, then you can learn how to use it, and then you can save the $300 and do it yourself. Doesn't make sense, does it? So Brian has that huge investment in very specialized and expensive tools, the education and how to use those tools. The software licenses that the tools are useless without, and is able to offer that at a very discounted rate. But if everybody backed up their data, he'd be out of business. And he says so himself. Oh, we're getting shouts out from all over the world and throughout the United States. I see Pittsburgh in the house, as well as, look at here, Italy, North Carolina, Western Tennessee, the UK, Spring City, Tennessee, Iowa, Minnesota, Louisiana, Philadelphia, Georgia. Dan Copeland says he's in Glendale, Arizona. Well, I'll make you a mod, Dan, because I'm in Glendale, Arizona, too. And John joins us from Maine, and Gil's in Texas. Wayne is in Texas. Paul Stallion joins us from Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Gary Weisenberger's in Michigan. Mario Brothers 6428 is in Texas. Paul joins us from Byron Bay, Australia. Joshua's in North Carolina, and Antoine Yassin, I can't pronounce the name, is in Paris, France. Welcome in, Antoine. Tristan joins us from Seattle, and Steven is in North Texas. Trust Me is in Warren, Michigan. Afshin is in the UK. Koa Tran is in Melbourne, Australia. He says, good day. Good day. Let's see, more from Iowa. Gabriel Granados watches us from Costa Rica. Umesh Kavinda is in Sri Lanka. Dennis Paulson is in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'll be back there in September. T.A. Morton says he's watching from District Heights, Maryland. Carl Williams is from Chicago. Doug Comp is in Arizona. Mike Broden is in Montreal, Canada. Frankie B wants to know, does the user have the software to reinstall on the PC? It really doesn't matter if they do or they don't. It's not an option. When the software has to be reinstalled, it's the customer's responsibility. And if the customer doesn't have it, I can assist. But for the most part, it is not the tech's responsibility, nor would any professional tech business even go so far as I do to protect customers' data unless it's a data recovery business. For the most part, they're going to fix your problem. Most techs, most technical shops would say, you got a bad hard drive, we're going to sell you a new hard drive, or you can upgrade to a solid state drive. We're going to reinstall your operating system. We recommend Windows 10. We're not going to install Windows 7. Windows 10 is $150. The hard drive is $100. Our labor is going to be $150, $200, and you're out the door with tax for a little under $500, and it'll probably take a week, 3 days to a week. That's, your Geek Squads. These places have rent to pay. They've got overhead, big overhead. And then you got to ask yourself, well, for $500, they got machines here for $500. Those machines are slower than this machine. But people go, well, this machine's 6 years old, so the new machine's better, not a $500 one. So sometimes, and then they get the new machine, and guess what? You still got to reinstall your apps. And you still don't have your data, so you're still going to pay somebody on top of that to recover or rescue your data, move it over, help you reinstall your apps, set up your emails, set up your printers, etc. If you're on a network, get that reconfigured. And now you're not at $500. Now you're back to the same labor you were going to spend to begin with, or more. Linda is joining us from Lexington, North Carolina. Blue Dog Ron is in Delaware. Ron joins us from Florida. Gerald's in Heath, Ohio. Daniel's in Rome, New York, and Robert joins us from Santa Rosa, California. Gary's north of Oak Park. Yeah, that's where I'm from, Oak Park. Jesse says hello from Bakersfield, California. Meterman is in the UK, and Ken joins us from Charleston, Illinois. Wayne Lawrence joins us from Oregon City, Oregon. Nick C says hello from California. Tony says greetings from Bulgaria. Greg Guy says hello from Southern Maryland. Ben Fitzpatrick, let me try that again. Ben Fitzpatrick is in Louisville, Kentucky. Marco is shouting out from Holland. Catherine Anna Hauserman joins us from Colombia. Cartagena de Indias, I guess that's how you say that. The real BJOD is in New Brunswick. Indy Champ joins us from Yuma. El Perez is in Brownsville, Texas. David Starbuck joins us from Orange Park, Florida. Ortesius Softnet says, good work from Honduras. Right on. Henry Taylor joins us from Thailand. John joins us from Coronado. Astrotech says, what's up all the way from South Africa? It's 4 a.m. Nice. And Lance Forey joins us from Cape Town, South Africa. Kevin Myers is in Pittsburgh, and Mario Brothers in Dallas. HP Jimbo is in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Mark Griffiths joins us from Birmingham, England. Tani Al Ramathi is in Dubai. Tani, did you see, was it yesterday's video or the day before we answered all your questions? I hope you caught that. David Martinez is watching us from Nacogdoches, Texas. Rick Lakes is in Minnesota. John is in Coronado, California. Illuminati Drop says hello from Venice, Italy. John Williams is in Madison, Wisconsin. He says it's 73 degrees. Nice. Lemon Man is in New Jersey. Robert Radigan is in Little Genesee, New York. Newcomers joining us from Hunker, Pennsylvania. Love to see the, Tanny says saw the video. Hope it answered your questions. DRK Sem is in Singapore. And Callie S is in Santa Rosa, California. Steve says hello from Suffolk, Virginia. Katrina H says, hi, I built my new desktop following one of your Gigabyte H370 HD3 builds, mostly, but substituted my current computer case in a Cooler Master HAF with a cooler. The Cooler Master HAF is the current case, and used a Corsair RM850 Gold power supply. Yeah, sounds good to me. Stan joins us from Fort Worth. Chester is in Oneonta, Alabama. Am I saying that? I don't know. I've never heard of that city. Glenn wants to know what make is my electric screwdriver. So these red tools, you'll see, power tool manufacturers, it's all about the color. All of the DeWalt tools, for example, are like this neon yellow. Ryobi tends to be this blue, green, and Milwaukee tools are all red. So when you see me carrying, I have that flip out knife and it's this red, that's Milwaukee's color. So Milwaukee made the original screwdriver that I used in 1991 when I got my first computer building job. And it was a tool that was provided to me by the company. Of course, it's expanded since then. It's lithium-ion battery. It lasts a really long time. It's dual speed, adjustable clutch. I love this electric driver. I truly do. It's a Milwaukee M4. You should be able to pick it up, I want to say, for about $140 for the driver, the charger, and 2 batteries. I think that's how it's sold. And then I add a 6-inch Phillips #2 bit, and this is a bit magnetizer that I threw on there. Now I do have a link to Amazon in my video notes below this video, and it has links to everything you see in my videos, from the little stopwatch timer to this little Lazy Susan, that keyboard and mouse, this flash drive. All of the things you see in my videos are there in that Amazon store. And if you make any purchase from Amazon using any of my links that take you to Amazon, regardless if you buy what the link takes you to, but while you're at Amazon, you search and you find something else you want to buy, a small commission is paid back to me to support the channel. You don't pay anything any different. Nothing's different from your perspective. So if you're shopping anyway, please use my link over at Amazon. And it's just for Amazon.com. Doesn't work in other countries. I could set it up, but I don't have enough viewers to justify the amount of time and effort it takes to set it up. Not at this time anyway. So just for Amazon.com, USA. Some questions about hybrid drives. So a hybrid drive is a mechanical drive that has like a small SSD built into it, and it's to cache frequently used files. And the reason the hybrid drives came out was because solid state drives were so expensive and relatively small in capacity. The problem is solid state drives got bigger and faster and cheaper much faster than the hard drive manufacturers anticipated. So by the time the hard drive manufacturers introduced the hybrid drive to the market, it was already obsolete. Basically, for the price of a hybrid drive, you can buy a larger mechanical drive and a small SSD and have a faster performing machine overall and more storage for less money. Now, there are people that use hybrid drives, they don't have any problems with them, and that's fine. I'm not suggesting they're problem prone, but financially they don't make any sense. If solid state drive prices were to remain, as high as they once were, um, and if the sizes were still relatively small, then hybrid drives would have made sense. Unfortunately, it was a bad read, a bad prediction by the hard drive manufacturers to try and put that middle stopgap, right between the benefits of performance with a solid state drive with the capacity of a mechanical drive, but also has the failure rate of a mechanical drive. And then when you add it all up, the price of it comparatively now to what you can buy a solid state drive for on top of a drive of the same or larger capacity is usually the same or less money than the single hybrid drive and will outperform it. So they were a good idea if the industry in solid state drives would have been slower to evolve. Unfortunately, that is not the reality, and it confuses a lot of people. They still see a benefit in hybrid drives. There isn't any, unfortunately. That reality that they were trying to protect, they being the hard drive manufacturers, they were trying to shield themselves against it, didn't play out the way they thought it would. It happened a lot faster. So by the time the hybrid drives hit the market, they were already obsolete. That didn't stop some mass manufacturers from utilizing them in pre-builds and things like that. And it's not like it's the worst thing in the world, but an SSD, a pure SSD, is much faster, more reliable, and they're relatively inexpensive these days. Arthur says last night was a late night. It was. I don't usually go that late, but the good news is I turned Prime 95 on yesterday's build after I got it all up and running and I put it back in the case. It's sitting back over there. And then I went to bed. And so it ran Prime 95 all night long. When I woke up this morning, I checked it. The hottest temperature it reached was a little over 88 degrees Celsius. We're using just the stock cooling fan. Now, I don't know if it was throttling, but it wasn't. The machine was still running perfectly fine. Well, that's good enough by me. Now, I may consider upgrading the cooler on there just because I can. And I also may upgrade the video card. I'm considering it. But for right now, I've set it aside because I've got it all put back in the case. And I'm just doing some mild testing on it before I send it back to my friend. And the longer that testing takes, the more opportunity there is to maybe order a little something to slap in there, like a better cooler or a better video card. Katrina says, Carrie, I forgot to say I used your Amazon link to buy the Gigabyte H370 HD3 motherboard, the Scythe Mugen 5 cooler, the Corsair RAM, the ADATA XPG 8100 NVMe 1TB SSD. Well, thank you, Katrina. Appreciate that. All right, let's check on our copy status. See where we're at. Went to sleep again. Wakey, wakey. Just going to wiggle the mouse around. It should wake back up here in a minute. Come on. There it is. Did the copy finish, or is it still doing something? Looks like... Oh, no, it's still copying. Yeah. Yeah, that's that's gonna take a while. But you can see this is a computer that's been in use for 6 years, and all the data combined still won't fill up that tiny little 128 gig solid state drive I'm using as a test drive. That's something to think about. That's real world, folks. That's real world use. So when you run into somebody who needs 2 terabytes, 4 terabytes, 8 terabytes, that's pretty unusual. Those are pretty high demand users. But the truth is, we're making more data now than we've ever made before. In fact, I read somewhere that we've created more data in the last year than all the previous years combined. And I believe that to be true. So our storage needs will continue to grow and grow and grow as we add more photos. And it's so easy to take a picture now with your phone. It's memories. You don't want to lose those memories. I think Spotify has been a lifesaver for me in the sense that my music library was getting unwieldy at 1,400 songs. And I really like that I can just use my phone and listen to the music without having to download it and pay for it. Just hear what I want to hear, pay the rental fee, if you will, every month, and have the convenience of instantly getting a song I hear on the radio. I can use the Shazam app to identify what the song is, connect it to Spotify, add it to my playlist. It's done. So much easier. I can download all the music so I can listen to it when I'm offline. I can listen to it exactly as I would on Spotify, with Spotify, well, in airplane mode, for example, on an airplane, if that were the case. So we have all the freedom of movement that a traditional MP3 file might give you without the harassing issue of data backup, ID tags, MP3 ID tags, misspellings, cataloging and categorizing the music accordingly. I've got a little OCD, a little, and and it drives me. Do I sort it by song name or by artist? Should I put it under Beatles or the Beatles, Eagles or the Eagles? And then if I do it with there's a bunch of bands that start with the. So should I just get rid of the for every band? Or are there bands where it doesn't make sense if you leave the off the title? Is it the Who or just Who? So Spotify solves all of that for me, and I don't have to worry about ransomware holding my music hostage or anything like that. And then being able to upload your pictures and things to places like, I don't know whether it's iPhoto or I don't know, something Apple uses, Google Photo, whatever, right? Just to get it off the platform. So if the phone is lost, stolen, damaged, you still have those pictures. But the truth of the matter is, we're taking more pictures than we're deleting. We're creating more data than we're removing, and our storage needs continue to grow exponentially every year. So backup is going to be even more important because the losses grow every day, right? The amount of data you could lose today is more than the amount of data you could have lost last year. Generally speaking, that applies to everybody. Food for thought. It looks like I might have missed a couple contributions. Let's take a look. Oh, I have. PC Doctor 2 has contributed $2. He says, great content as always. Or she, I don't know, right? Thank you, PC Doctor 2. That guy with pie has contributed $2. He says, hello from St. Clair Shores, Michigan. Right on. Dalton Matheson contributes $2. He says, great content. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Dalton. Chris Kingan with a $5 contribution said, here's for you, Carrie. I always look forward to your content. Appreciate that, Chris. Johnny Jackwind with 20 New Zealand dollars said, what was the strangest or hardest thing you've come across being a technician over the past 29 years? I get that question quite a bit. It's a difficult question to answer because generally speaking, there are numerous events that have taken place over the years that at the time seemed pretty severe, but then, the more time passes, the less severe it seems. It's almost like looking at a scar. Whatever that thing was that scarred you might have hurt like heck. It might have been very traumatic. It might have taken forever to heal. But the more time you move away from that, there's a numbness sort of eases it. So for me, what's most recent on my mind is the Y3K bug in the Gigabyte BIOS that prevented a Windows 10 install from occurring. And the long and short of it, if you didn't watch the video, it was a profoundly difficult issue to diagnose. But the long and short of it is you can replace every single component of a brand new build, every single component, the RAM, the CPU, everything, everything, even the case, and start again with a Windows 10 install, and it constantly freezes. Change the motherboard. So you go, well, this is an unfixable PC. How can it be unfixable? How can you change every single part and still not be able to install Windows 10? And what ended up happening is the customer bought a used motherboard from Amazon to save a few bucks. It was just probably an H370 HD3. It's a $100 board anyway, so how much was he going to save? 10%? Is that what they mark it down? 20%? He saves 10 or 20 bucks? What he gets is a motherboard that has the date set by whoever originally bought this board. They fat-fingered their keyboard and didn't notice they put the year 29. So 2029 was the year. They should have never gone into the BIOS. I tell you guys, don't go in your BIOS, leave it alone. Well, those people didn't watch my video, did they? I also tell you, if you're a first-time builder, don't go buying used parts. Well, this guy didn't listen. Kind of glad he didn't, because I got a great lesson out of it, which was what happens is in the BIOS, Gigabyte says, when you put the date in, it can be in this range, but then they don't enforce that range. Everybody else does. MSI does, Asus does, ASRock. As far as I know, every motherboard manufacturer requires you to be within the range. And if you're not within the range, it'll default to whatever the highest number is. So if I were to put the year 29, so 2029, in an ASRock, MSI, or Asus board, and the maximum date it allows is 2024, then it'll change that automatically to 24 when I save the BIOS. It won't let me put 29 in there. Gigabyte does. So then you boot off your Windows 10 installation media, right? And Windows 10 goes to install, and it locks up on the second or third. On the second reboot, it freezes. You go, maybe you got an incompatible flash drive. Maybe your download of the Windows 10 media is corrupt. Get another flash drive, download the media again, recreate the tool again, freezes up. Change the RAM, freezes up. Change the power supply, freezes up. Change everything, it freezes up. And you say, well, wait a minute, Gary, if he changes the motherboard and he buys a brand new motherboard, doesn't that solve the date issue? No, because when he plugs the M.2 drive, those failed Windows 10 attempts are on that M.2 drive. As soon as he turns the system on, Windows 10 tries to continue installing where it left off and set your BIOS date back to what it was, to 2029. Thank you, Windows 10. That's maddening. So the fix for it was, first of all, to inform Gigabyte that if you have a date range, you need to enforce it like everybody else. But to fix it, what I had to do was erase all the partitions on this brand new M.2 drive. Then go into the BIOS and manually change the date back to the regular date it's supposed to be. And then restart the computer with the flash drive of Windows 10 installation media and do the install, and it works fine. The customer, even though it was his first build, he did nothing wrong. He installed all his parts correctly. He handled all the parts correctly. His mistake was trying to save a few dollars and bought a returned product. If you're an experienced technician and you want to play around with the returned product, go for it. But if you're a first-time builder, that can be very discouraging because you don't know why that product was returned. And again, in the big view of things, I'm glad it happened. How else would I have known You got to know that poor person who bought that motherboard and fat fingered the date and didn't realize it was pretty well convinced they had a bad motherboard. And when they bought a new motherboard, imagine their shock if they put their original installation hard drive or solid state drive back in their new motherboard and then turn the machine on for the first time to let that installation finish, and it just goes and resets their BIOS. They're right back to square one. How frustrated would you be? So that was pretty maddening, and I'm glad I caught it on camera. But now yesterday's was also pretty maddening. You know, we had a system that wouldn't boot with a third generation Ryzen 3 processor, second, what is it, Zen 2, right? It's third generation, right? There's Zen, Zen Plus, and Zen 2. It's kind of confusing. I don't know why they did that. But regardless, the system booted with an original Ryzen 1500 processor, but then it wouldn't boot to the Ryzen 3600. So you need a BIOS update. Well, so we apply the BIOS update, system still doesn't boot. Well, the RAM that was working with the original Ryzen processor, the Generation 1, wasn't working with the Generation 3. So we had a motherboard that had an out-of-date BIOS that wasn't going to work regardless until we updated it with the Ryzen 3600. And we had RAM that wasn't compatible for whatever reason with this motherboard and that chip. So we had a layered issue. And those are fun. Those are a lot of fun. That is the best video game in the world because it is so rewarding when you figure it out. It's a huge rush. I love it. I absolutely love it. So those most frustrating problems are generally the lessons that stay with me and the stories I'll continue to tell for years from now. I will share those stories. They're so unusual and so frustrating, and most ordinary humans would have given up, but not me. I put on my cape. I had a boss tell me I was like a bulldog. When I had my first computer repair job, a company called TriStar Computer Corporation, they built AutoCAD workstations, 1991, Chandler, Arizona. Boss says to me, "You're like a bulldog." Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? What does that mean? He goes, "When you sink your teeth into something, you won't let it go." Like, well, how else am I going to learn? If I shrug it off, go, "I can't fix it," all I'm hurting is myself. That's an opportunity, man. Stick with it. Figure it out. Never ask anybody for help. It's a very manly, stupid thing to do. I will do it myself the hard way if it takes all day to do a 5-minute job, because that's what it takes for me to learn. And then I will never forget it. And that lesson will stay with me. And the next time I encounter that problem, you'll think I'm a freaking genius when I solve it in 30 seconds because you weren't there struggling with me for hours and hours and hours the first time. That's the beauty of experience. People will often be tricked into thinking, "Wow, you're a really smart person." You're like, "Well, okay, I'll take it." The truth is, I really struggled to fix this the first time I saw it. The second time I saw it, I'll never forget the fix because I struggled so hard the first time. And that makes you think I'm smart. I'll take it. I will take it. So yeah, those are a couple of very recent issues we've done, and I'm so glad I was able to capture that, especially last night, live on camera, because I don't know of any other YouTube channel that does that. It's a real treat to take you with me on that journey and to have you experience what I experienced. And I hope that when I succeeded, you felt a little bit of that success. You were a part of it. I mean, you guys in the chat room were giving me suggestions to update the BIOS, right? It was people in the chat room that said, "Pay attention to the date, Carrie." Now, there's no doubt I would have eventually got there, right? I mean, I would have got there. But with your help, I got there a little faster, and I feel like we were able to share that success, right? That it wasn't just, "Look how great I am." That's never my style. Never my style. And if I have the ability to share an experience with the world who are interested, and you join me on that journey, I mean, that's a video I want to watch. Tell you the truth, I'd love to watch a video like that. Would you make some for me? In the meantime, I'm the only one I know who does that. And so I feel like I need to do it for that very reason. Nobody else is doing it. If you do know of other people doing that, please send me links to their channel because I would very much enjoy watching that kind of diagnosing work and repair. Real world stuff. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. What's the easiest thing about being a technician? Hmm. I suppose the easiest thing is when you encounter problems you have experience with and you're familiar with, and you could make them easy or make them appear easy. I'll have a client call me and say, I got this really frustrating problem. It's been bothering me for months. And I'm like, well, stop explaining it. Show it to me. Let me connect remotely. Show me the problem. Okay. That's first thing. Customer says, well, as you can see, it does this, this. And I'm like, hold on, click, click, there, it's fixed. Customer says, what? I go, it's fixed. They go, yeah, but this was bothering me for a long time. I go, well, you should have called me earlier. It's done. Well, I'm sorry to bother you. I thought it'd be more difficult. I go, don't apologize. What, you want me to be frustrated? You want me to bang my head against the wall trying to figure your problem? You can call me with easy problems as often as you want. They make me feel smart. I like easy problems. Please don't apologize that it wasn't a more difficult problem. The customers will do that. I'm so sorry. It was so easy. Don't be. I will gladly take 10 easy requests than one difficult one. That's not rocket science. Come on. So that's probably the best part of being a tech is when somebody's just baffled by how simple you made something look. But I'm baffled watching somebody play piano with two hands elegantly. I can't do that. Whatever this hand does, this hand has to do. I can't make this hand do this and this hand do something else. I don't know how you do that. So we all have our gifts, right? And there's certainly embarrassing times too. But that wasn't your question. But thank you for asking. Mr. Spock contributed $10. He says, Carrie, great room and members. Michael Dane is my brother and told me about this great room, its host and members. Well, right on, Mr. Spock. I like your name. I like your brother. I guess you come from good stock. Welcome in. I hope you'll stick around. Matt Power has contributed $2. Steve Welch with $5. T.A. Morton Sr. has contributed $5. He says, here's some money for more Gatorade. Oh, thank you. I guess I'm out. Let's get some more Gatorade. So let's take a brief look over the last 2 days in the real world life of an in the trenches working technician. We have a computer that was very difficult to diagnose and spent many hours trying to figure it out. Got it? I think resolved. Everything seems happy right now. Less than 24 hours later, another computer shows up, and it's a relatively simple problem. You have a very what's the word? There's a word I want. This is happening to me more and more the older I get. I think they say when you get older, the first three things to go is your memory and two other things. This is a very by the book sort of repair in the sense that the symptom, that the way the customer described it, sounded like a failing hard drive. Putting it on the bench, it was a failing hard drive. The customer didn't hesitate. They shut the machine off. They reached out to me right away, and I'm very easily able to recover the data, no problem. We're going to put a solid state drive in it. I've already blown all the dust and dirt out of it. I've updated the BIOS. It's going to be good at least for another 4 years. I can assure you it's going to be great. This, I have no doubt, will not need to be replaced. Remember I said I had to build 5 computers for Kids at Hope? Well, when I'm done with this one today, I'll only have to do 4, and 2 are already done. That means I'm only left having to do 2. I did not realize that I contributed a computer to them many years ago. I've completely forgotten. You can see how long I've been using the Corsair 200R case. You can see how my configurations, they just work. They're not fancy. There's not RGB. There's no liquid cooling. They just work. And if you want something to just work, keep it basic. You don't have to keep it low power. You can have a rocket ship of a computer without all the flashing lights and liquid cooling and issues that are known points of failure in the coming years ahead. I try to remove as many of those as possible. By the way, that's bad for business. People are like, people will say, Kerry's a great tech. Yeah, I never have to use them. Think about that. Not good for business. Yates Network says, I wish to mimic my channel after yours and Brytech09. Well, you're in good company, and if you have some videos up and you want to share them here, talk to me about it. Give you a little jump start. Blue Dog Ron says, man, we are so much alike. I am the same way as I think I don't need any help. When I do figure it out, you'd never forget it. Yeah, well, maybe it's a generational thing. I don't know. I remember when I was taking an automotive repair course I was originally going to be an ASE certified mechanic at a GM training facility. And I remember the instructor writing these letters on the chalkboard. K-Mac Yo-Yo. I'll write it in chat. K-M-A-K-Y-O-Y-O. And it's not, why is it not in K-M-A-K-Y-O-Y-O? And that is kiss my A kid, you're on your own. That was the instructor's way of telling you, leave me alone, figure it out, do it yourself. Welcome to the world, get to work. There was no participation trophy here. This was brutal, but that's how it was. And that just stuck with me. I never heard that expression before, K-Mac Yo-Yo. Rodolfo Ramirez has contributed 50 Mexican peso. Thank you, Rodolfo. Alberto Alvarez with $5 says, I love your way of troubleshooting. So let's go back. Let's go back to 1986. I'm 18 years old. And computers, I've been playing with computers at that point for about 3 or 4 years. TRS-80, Model 1, Model 3. The color computer, I didn't care. It's just like a toy. I didn't care for that. Coco. The Timex Sinclair was a joke. The TI-99A was a joke to me. The VIC-20 was a joke to me. So it was about the Atari 400, the Atari 800, the Commodore 64. There was a Commodore PET, the Commodore PET, when I was 15, 16 years old in high school. That's all in one unit. The whole monitor, the cassette player. You saved all of your programs to a cassette tape. The same kind of cassette tape that a Sony Walkman, that people listen to music on. That's how we save data on home computers, and they were very, very expensive. If my annual salary at $3.35 an hour was $7,000 a year, that Commodore PET was probably $5,000, to give you some perspective of value. It would be like buying a computer today if you're making minimum wage at, what is it, $12 an hour is 2,080 hours. You're making what, $24,000 or $25,000 a year. Imagine if a computer was $17,000, $18,000. That was the equivalent. It was you had to have a lot of money, and there was no internet, and people thought you were crazy. What are you doing with that thing? What do you need that for? And there was a lot of resistance against it. A lot of my parents themselves were like, that's a waste of your time. You need an education to figure out what you're going to do for a living and stop playing games all day. I spent a lot of time in the arcade. played a lot of Galaga. Still very good. It's like riding a bicycle, man. I can get on Galaga and sit on it for a half an hour, 45 minutes. Easy. Super easy. Just it's a skill I've never lost. And kind of proud of it. It's stupid, but I'm proud of it. I dumped a lot of quarters in the arcade and played a lot of arcade games. There, again, no internet, and it was really about knowing the right people, belonging to computer clubs, which you might learn about through the newspaper or through word of mouth, where there were other people who had the same kind of computer you did, and you trade software back and forth. There wasn't much in the way of copyright protection. There was some, but not much. And you had to figure everything out on your own because there wasn't, I mean, unless you knew somebody, what was your resource for information? There were very few books. Most of the books, by the time they were published about last year's technology. Because by the time they wrote the book, edited the book, published the book, that technology had already been replaced, including in college. I took a college course in computers, and I asked the teacher if I could test out of it. And he said, you can. However, I would enjoy having you in the class. I don't think you know everything. You might learn something. And while I have no doubt that what you're telling me is true, and you probably know more than I do about it, I would enjoy your company in the classroom. So I did the class. And on the first day, he gave out the assignments, the syllabus for the semester, and I did it all in the next class. They said, here's the semesters of work already done. Here it is. But I did enjoy it. I had a good time. Shannon Davies with a $5 contribution says, I love your videos. Keep up the good work. And David Starbuck with a $20 contribution. He said, at my work, we say bohica. Bent over, here it comes again. Nice. I've never heard of that one. All right, let's check in on this computer and see how we're doing on the copy. I want to emphasize, and I don't want to underplay the importance of the life on this drive. It's very important that I'm getting everything off of it as quickly as possible. This drive could theoretically operate in this handicapped manner indefinitely, or it could fail before I finish the sentence. I have no control over what's about to happen. So I am diligently pulling the data off as quickly as it will let me, and hoping that I will be able to recover or rescue the data off of this drive in its entirety so that the customer can have a nice clean installation of Windows 10 Pro, have all their data back without worrying about did we back it up, and then only has to reinstall their applications, which will probably be like Microsoft Office, the Adobe Acrobat, stuff like that. It should be relatively simple. Reset up email, reset up printers. How are we doing? Let's take a look. Still copying. Part of the reason it's still copying isn't because it's necessarily a lot of data, but that the drive is failing and it's probably hitting sectors that it has to keep going over again and again, trying and trying and trying. Let's take a look at what it's doing. Oh, we're moving pretty good. But 16 gigs shouldn't take 4.5 hours. Yeah, and that's a pretty low transfer rate. So the drive is struggling. So we don't want to hesitate. We want to pull the data off while we can. Don't mess about. Don't try running spin right. Get the data off the drive. Get the drive replaced. Drives are cheap. Don't mess about. And then if you want to play with the drive in your spare time, knock yourself out. I like to take the old drives out to the range and shoot at them with a Mosin de Gaunt. Puts a nice bullet hole right through them like a surgeon. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. It's very, very therapeutic, by the way. This customer also mentioned that they were trying to add a Wi-Fi adapter, and I said, well, I can install a Wi-Fi adapter for you if you need one. And I'm looking, and I see I got a couple of PCI Express slots here. I'll do the trick. We can put an internal one in there. We can put a USB one on there. I'm actually quite impressed with how well the system runs, considering its age. Windows 10's moving quite well, if you ask me. I think it's pretty responsive. I think a lot of people overestimate the amount of power they need. This fascination with overclocking, etc. Doesn't really translate to actual practical everyday usage in any benefit other than it's something to do. I suspect. Would it be worth it afterwards to clone the drive? What benefit would I need to clone the drive? Why would I want Windows 7? No, and we've got in theory, we've got an operating system that hasn't been reinstalled in over 6 years or about 6 years. It's due, you know. Let's start with a clean slate. Let's do it right. Let's get it done right. Let's stop playing around. Let's stop guessing. Let's stop rolling the dice. Let's just do it right. New drive, new install of Windows 10, reinstallation of the programs, and a rescue of the data. That's doing it right. Give it back to the customer, assist them with getting the apps reinstalled if they require that assistance, and then let them go back to work, and it'll be another 6 years before I hear from them again. I'm good with that. What am I missing in the chat room? Rich Robbins says he got a new USB Wi-Fi adapter about 3 weeks ago and it works great. Well, there you go. If you have a piece of paper that's torn and you put it on a copy machine so that you can have a piece of paper and you can have everything on that paper that's torn on a nice untorn piece of paper, you're not replacing the torn part. So wherever the tear is, if there's a sentence or words missing, or if you've taped it back together, there's this weird line, there's this weird corruption, and maybe it's not aligned just right, you can tell it's not, you can tell it's damaged. If you copy something that's damaged, if you put a mirror in front of it, it reflects back the same damage. When you clone, you're mirroring. You're taking an exact image of a drive. If a drive is not working properly, then there's data corruption. Ultimately, there's data corruption wherever the drive's having trouble. And when you use Acronis to clone that, now you're cloning the corrupted files. If you had a virus-infected drive and you clone it, you've got a brand new drive with a virus on it. If you've got an old installation with 12 terabytes worth of temp files because you never cleaned it, and you clone it to a 14 terabyte drive, you now have 12 terabytes of unnecessary temp files. Cloning is really used when you have a good installation, good solid installation. And let's say, for example, the customer says, my hard drive's too small. I need more space, or I want to move from a hard drive to a solid state drive. And there's no problems with the computer, then it's faster to clone that drive to the larger or faster drive since everything's fine. But if it's broken, you don't want to clone what's broken unless you want the new one to be broken too. So understand that these tools are to be utilized depending on the circumstance, and that cloning a drive doesn't fix it. It's simply a duplication. If I have a defect and you clone me, won't my clone also have that defect if it's a true clone, if it's an exact clone? So if you were going to make a clone, would you not want it to be defective? I mean, it's, if you're creating it, let's manipulate the DNA. Let's take the defects out of it. But if you're a perfect specimen of human DNA, that makes sense to clone. It's the same thing with a hard drive. That is a bizarre example, and I'm not even sure why I went there. Fan of sci-fi. It's funny to me because I read an article a couple of years ago that some couple paid $20,000 to have their golden retriever, who died of whatever reason, cloned. Cloning doesn't get you the personality of the dog. That's developed through its environment. Um, all cloning does is give you the same physical appearance. And don't all golden retrievers look alike? Like you could have, I think you could have taken 20 grand and given them any golden retriever puppy and said, "Here's your clone." The personality of the dog can't be cloned. Not possible. Not yet. So all you're getting are the physical characteristics. In the same way, when a drive is failing or failed and you're trying to clone it, you're going to end up with a new drive that is failing. If you had a bad install before, you've got a bad install now. It's sort of like if you're going to go through all the trouble and effort of replacing the drive, and then you're going to then completely undo all that work by cloning a bad operating system onto that brand new drive, you have done yourself and your customer, in my opinion, an extraordinary disservice. Take the opportunity, do it right. All applications can be reinstalled. It is not the end of the world. I don't know why people make such a big deal about it. I don't have that software anymore. Well, I assure you there's some better piece of software that since replaced it. Come and join us in 2020, would you? No, they don't make anything like it anymore. Then learn to live without it like the rest of us have. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I don't know what it is. Does it monitor your dialysis machine? You know, is it critical life importance? No, it's just a hassle. You do it one time, I promise you. Nobody who's ever done a wipe and reinstall went through the hassle of reinstalling and reactivating their apps ever said to me, "I wish I hadn't have done that." Never. It's never happened. Oh, they'll grumble. These icons are missing. This wallpaper is wrong. The font size is wrong. And we'll fix it. You didn't just get your computer one day and it was exactly the way it is. You did that slowly over time. So this idea that you need to put everything back exactly the way it was is preposterous and stupid, in my opinion, because it was never that way. It took time. So give yourself 2 weeks and put your applications back on as you need them. Don't be like, "Oh, I got to put everything back on there that was there. Let me count my icons." Why? If you can't tell me what's missing off the top of your head, then you don't need it. If you have to compare one screen to another and go, "Well, this one has 10 icons and this one has 12. Which one's missing?" No, 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 no. No cheating. You tell me what's missing. "Well, I don't know what's missing." Well, when you figure it out, you let me know. Because that's how your computer got to the state it's in now. Why should a new computer be any different? What do you need right now? What do you need today? Do you need Word? You need email? You need a printer? Let's set that up. You need something else tomorrow? Call me tomorrow. Within 2 weeks, on average, you don't even think about it anymore. Everything's already put back. It's all behind you, and your machine's running better than it's ever run. It's faster. All those little things you learn to live with, you don't have to live with those anymore. You're like, "Oh, I wish I would have done this earlier." You look back on it and you go, "It wasn't that bad." It's not that bad. Clint says, Carrie, love the channel. I want to say thank you for the channel. Keep up the great work. Right on, Clint. Thank you. Robert says he's got an i5 4570. It's a fourth generation Intel chip. He's still using it, gave it to his daughter, and it still works great. Why wouldn't it? Mike says he put an SSD in his 5-year-old laptop and brought it back to life. The best upgrade he's ever done. Yeah, well, I've been saying that a long time. Greg M mentions the price on the Mugen 5 from third-party sellers on Amazon is over $100. That's pretty common on Amazon for people to take advantage. Don't participate in it. There's a lot of alternatives to the Mugen 5 to consider. The Hyper 212 Evo, the Dark Rock 2. I always mess up the name on these Be Quiet products, and the Noctua cooler. Those three coolers are widely available, and in fact, Dark Rock is cheaper than the Scythe, and it's available on Amazon. And it's fairly easy to install. Let me go back in my office and see what we've got here. So here's the Noctua. Here's the Hyper 212. Oh, and the Pure Rock 2. That's called the Pure Rock 2. I can never remember that. Now, when I have some time, I will install these coolers on the same motherboard, run Prime 95 for 15-20 minutes, and we'll see how they perform. But they're in this order. Cheap, middle, and pricey for what is essentially the same size radiator and the same size fan. These are the three main coolers I personally would choose from right now because I don't need anything fancy. I don't need these big heavy coolers. I don't need an all-in-one. So if you want the cheapest one, the Hyper 212 Black Edition is a great choice. The heatsink's a little smaller on it, but it cools really, really well. The installation could be easier. The Pure Rock 2 is a great improvement from Be Quiet from the original Pure Rock, which I did not like at all. The radiator, I think, is a little bigger on this, if I'm not mistaken. It's very quiet. These are all quiet, by the way. And then, so we're looking at like $30, $45, and then $70 for the Noctua NHU12S, which I have not installed yet, but people say the installation is really good. So, while the Scythe Mugen 5 is a good deal, I think the Pure Rock 2 is a better deal. I will say the Mugen 5's heatsink is larger, but I don't know that it's cooling any better. I will need to test these coolers along with the Mugen 5 to see where price and performance fit, ease of installation, noise level. And these are all black, by the way. This is the black edition of the Hyper 212, the Pure Rock 2 also in black, and the Noctua Chromax in black. Chromax is sort of Noctua's cheap line, bargain line. So I'll be interested to see how these compare. But I think you'll be happy with any of them in their performance, honestly. If it was me picking cooler today with Mugen 5 being out of stock, without hesitation, I'd pick the Pure Rock 2. That's only because I've never experienced this Noctua cooler. I've never used it before, but it's nearly twice the price. So $70, $45. So yeah, it's not twice the price, but it's the most expensive cooler because it says Noctua on it. Be Quiet, surprisingly a bargain price, cheaper than the Scythe Mugen 5. And then the Hyper 212 Black Edition, smaller, lighter cooler, a little more difficult to install, but right around a $35 price point, which is a bargain. So for $10 more, you step up to the Pure Rock, and for $25 more, you can step up to the Noctua. You don't have to worry about sticking with the Mugen 5. It is a good value, but I'm really starting to question that now with the Pure Rock 2. I didn't realize how cheap it was until the Mugen 5 went out of stock. So for an i9 Intel processor, I'm good with a Pure Rock. Well, it depends what you're doing with it. If you're going to overclock it, then no. But under normal use, it should be fine. I mean, what do you do with your computer? The, 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 I'll get the word, hold on. The heat sinks and the fans run very low speed and very quiet under normal desktop usage. They will get louder when you're really pushing hard on your CPU, depending on what you're doing. And a lot of games are mostly going to be GPU reliant anyway. But there are some games that are pretty heavy on the CPU that could raise your temperatures up quite a bit. So it's really difficult for me to tell you what you're going to have a problem with. Until I actually run the tests on these, I can't give you an exact answer other than to say in general, yes, they work fine. On a specific, like I'm going to put these on an i9 9900 KS, and I'm going to compare this cooler, this cooler, this cooler, and the Mugen 5, and I'm going to evaluate the installation process, if it's easy or difficult, the cost, the noise level, and its effectiveness at cooling. Then I'll be able to tell you for certain. But I do believe I keep saying it wrong, the Pure Rock 2 is probably going to be just fine. Yeah. Maybe not the Hyper 212, but definitely the Pure Rock 2 and certainly the Noctua should be fine as well. What is the most common problem that cause a screen to not work? I don't fix monitors. They're too inexpensive compared to the cost of labor and getting parts. I'm not the person to ask. I don't know. Will these coolers work if the motherboard defaults to overclocks? Well, again, the motherboard, when it defaults to overclocking, it's only when the CPU is being pushed hard. Like during a normal email, browsing the web, opening Word, um, watching videos on YouTube, your CPU's not doing a whole lot. I'm streaming this live to you, and my CPU usage is 0.3% on OBS, one third of 1% of CPU usage on a 3900X. So you really have to be pushing the system really hard, and even then over a long period of time for the cooler to really be an issue. So unless the cooler is getting too loud for you, there's no issue of or danger of harming the computer. It just becomes an issue of noise. And if the computer gets so hot, or if the CPU gets so hot it starts to throttle, and that affects your performance, then we have an issue to resolve. But this fascination with temperature is very bizarre to me. Very bizarre conversation to have with human beings. Nobody talks about the temperature of anything else. It's very strange. Are you on the Acronis stream next Tuesday? No. All right, let me just check and see how my copy is moving along here. And I suspect my screen will be asleep, so I will move the mouse in advance this time. So I'm just going to look at it on my side. it still wants 3 hours. It still has 14 gigs to go. It's very, very slow. And there's a lot of files. It's moving over 5,000 files. So I'm not going to, do the whole broadcast while this is going on. You guys can see the process. You saw real diagnostic, live, unedited, unscripted, and I'm already telling you what the solution is. We're going to put I'll probably get a 1 terabyte SSD just to be safe, although I shouldn't. I should put a 500 just to force them to make backups. I haven't made up my mind. But it'll get a 500 or a 1 terabyte solid state drive, 2.5 inch, because this motherboard doesn't support M.2. I'll add a Wi-Fi adapter in there for this customer. I'm going to do a fresh, clean install of Windows 10 Professional, make sure that it's activated and updated. We'll run Uncle Carrie's Windows 10 optimizer on that. And copy the data that I'm moving over right now onto that temporary SSD. That'll get copied over to the permanent SSD. That SSD is going to mount right in here. The Corsair 200R has a space for up to four 2.5-inch solid state drives. Use toolless, just slide it in the slot, it locks in place, and you just take the same cables off the hard drive and plug them in, you're done. I'll temporarily hook up the solid state drive that I'm using now, the temporary drive. I'll temporarily hook it up to the cables used for the DVD drive so I can pull the data off of it that I'm putting on it now. And then when that data has been transferred, I'll hook the DVD drive back up, button everything back up, give it back to the customer. I will put TeamViewer on it so I can remotely assist the customer if they have any problems in the future. And as I mentioned, this will be really one less system I have to upgrade because it seems like it's more than adequate to do the job. I mean, I could upgrade it while I've got it, but I really don't think they need it. It seems to be performing quite well. And I think they'll be so impressed with it with a solid state drive, they'll think I upgraded it. So I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight. I want to thank everybody for your contributions and your support. I missed a few here, so let me just go back one more time. I'll say thank you to Chris's Channel of Technology for the $5 contribution. He said he just had a 2-year-old HP computer come in for repair. Customer says it won't boot. Haven't looked at it yet. Yeah, something to do. KC has contributed $1.99. Is there any other way to ground yourself working on a PC? Handle the parts by the edges, don't touch the components, and you don't need to worry about grounding yourself. I've got a video entitled Anti-Static Mythbuster. You might want to watch that. So my thanks to the other previous contributions from David Starbuck, Shannon Davies, Alberto Alvarez, Mr. Spock, Rodolfo Ramirez, T.A. Morton Sr., Steve Welch, Matt Power, Johnny Jackwind and Chris Keegan, Dalton Matheson, that guy with Pi, PC Doctor 2, couple in there from Marty, who's in the hospital with COVID-19. Always good to see Marty, and hope you're going to get well here real soon and get back home right away. I demand it. Get better, because I said so. Now. I got your back, Marty. We got your back. Steve Warrington, Frankie B., thank you for that generous contribution. Again, I appreciate that very much. Kevin Rank, Philip Gunner, and today's first contribution from Paul Stallion, 48. Your contributions help me to create more videos more often and to not be a corporate mouthpiece being filtered or told what I can or cannot say. And you know that everything I'm telling you is my honest opinion, no matter how wrong it is. There's nobody paying me to say the terrible things I say. It's all my own idea. And you guys help me to maintain that independence by supporting the channel with your contributions so that I can continue to offer the content free of charge so that everybody can learn regardless if they can afford it. And of course, to the good folks at RoboForm, my only sponsor, for providing support to the channel where no other manufacturers have before. In a way, I should say, no other manufacturers have before. And I couldn't be prouder of that relationship, and I hope we maintain that for a long time. Tonight I have to edit the interview I did earlier today with the folks at RoboForm, and I intend to post that tomorrow. And you guys have a big discount, and I hope you'll take them up on the offer because it's a heck of a deal. And password managers, man, I'm telling you, you just can't live without one these days. It's not easy to live without a password manager. It's not safe. It's not smart. And when it's a really good deal, what excuse is left to not use one? So I hope you'll check it out tomorrow. My thanks again to all my friends in blue. We had a few people trying to stir the pot. They didn't last too long. I love it. Just squish them like bugs. Get them out of here. This video will be made available for later viewing, so if you just now joined us, give YouTube a couple hours to process it, and it'll be released with the chat reactivated and everything. And yeah. So again, thanks to my friends in blue for keeping it civil. Those of you who are not yet blue, I would love to make you blue. All you have to do is not be a jerk. It's real easy. But apparently beyond the capability of many people on the internet. So rise above and join us. Become blue with the rest of us. Support each other. Be nice to each other. Oh, what an unreasonable thing to say. Abdul Azim Patel just contributed $5. Says, can we extend our existing RoboForm? Yes, to a maximum of 5 years. So the discount tomorrow, right, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. The discount is actually active right now. If you click the link in the video notes, you'll see the discount, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. And it affects more than just the regular plan. But if let's say you've got 3 years of RoboForm now, then you can buy 2 more. If you don't have any RoboForm at all, you can buy up to 5 years. Maximum is 5 years, no matter which way you come at it. It's active and working now, so you squeezed it out of me. Are you happy? You've ruined the surprise. That's all right. It just means more opportunity for more sales for them, which is good for me. Saves you money. That's good for you. Everybody's happy. And we walk through, Simon Davis from RoboForm and myself. Simon walks us through the basic steps of how to use RoboForm. I know some people had a real difficult time conceptualizing how it works because I've never seen anything like it or really understood how it works. So I've asked Simon to give us a walkthrough, install it, show us the basics of how to use it. Let's not get advanced, let's keep it simple. And that's exactly what he did. The interview should be about an hour long. So it's perfect. Not too short, not too long. Next time Simon comes back, we'll get into some of the more advanced features of RoboForm. But what we're not doing is repeating the same thing over and over and over again. So every time I bring a guest on, it will always be fresh, new content for you guys. So my thanks again to everybody for joining me today. Check out that RoboForm link in the video notes if you want to check out that discount. And I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. I have some work to do. I've got this computer to finish. I've got a video to edit. And maybe I will sleep at some point. I don't know. Maybe. I am looking for one of my sister's amazing intros that I can use to end today's show. I think we're going to go with the light bulb. I love that light bulb. What's he talking about? You'll see. Stay safe. I'll see you all tomorrow. Until then, bye for now.